Indian. He wrote more than 500 stories for the children. So I think he is doing good for the children. He is a novelist, story writer. He also wrote some poems. So I am very much obliged to the Times of India. I got the opportunity to felicitate these personalities. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sankar.
The Tollygunge Club about 10 or 15 years ago, and it was about 4 or 5 in the evening, and as the sun went down, millions of mosquitoes rose from the ground and descended on the audience, and everyone fled. So I hope that won't happen to you in the evening. But thank you very much, Times of India, Mrs. Vinita Nangia, who brought me down from the hills. But it's getting cold up now, and it's great to know that this particular festival has the theme of crime fiction, and we have an eminent writer here, Claire McIntosh, isn't it? Claire McIntosh, yes, and by sheer coincidence, I just picked up one of her novels just last month. And enjoyed it immensely. So it's good to be here and to see her in the flesh. And thank you all. I know Calcutta is a place full of readers, genuine lovers of literature, and young and old. And I've known that ever since I've been coming here, and it was. My good father, who actually grew up in Calcutta and also passed away here many, many years ago. And so my connection, although I've never lived here for long periods, I've always had this close connection. So I'm looking forward to your questions.
Yes. Well, the first thing that I want to know from you is that everybody loves you. Everybody loves your writings. Everybody loves just about everything about you. And the excitement in the air is palpable when they know Ruskin Bond is coming. So what are the special ingredients that go into making Ruskin Bond?
I've no idea, really. I think it's just that I've been around a long time, and people have got used to seeing me and perhaps seeing and reading my stories here and there. It's been going on since I finished school, and I think I meet a lot of young people who want to write, and perhaps in a way I've set them off in the sense that they have seen how I have actually survived at it for over 65 years of writing. Because back in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, it was very hard to make a living as a writer in India. We didn't have many book publishers, at least not English book publishers. I know there was a lot being done in Bengali. But there were books, of course, textbooks. There were not, there wasn't general literature, there wasn't fiction, there wasn't poetry being published much. And that's very different now. And in the last 10 or 15 years, there's been an upsurge in publishing and writing. And because I started very young, I keep meeting kids who want to start younger than me. So when I say I wrote my first book when I was 17, they say, but I'm only 12 and I've written a book. I keep meeting youngsters who've written books and are putting me to shame. But I wouldn't discourage anyone from writing because it's a great vocation. It can be a profession, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
I think you're still being very modest, and if I may, I would say that what people really love about you is this great sense of innocence which you carry with you always. In your writing, in your speeches, the way you talk, that honesty, that innocence that comes from within you, that is what I think children reach out to a lot. And maybe adults as well. They're not so used to it anymore, I guess. So
I'm glad you find me innocent. I've never thought of myself as being innocent. In fact, my autobiography is called Lone Fox Dancing, and I'm a very foxy fellow. But there was this TV interviewer not long ago who was interviewing me, and she kept calling my book Lone Wolf Dancing. And I said, I'm not a wolf by any means, you know. Well, a fox might take your chickens, but is otherwise pretty harmless. And but wolves eat you up, so I don't want to be a wolf by any means.
And they say foxes roam around in the grounds here at the Tollygunge Club.
I believe, yes, the Tollygunge Club, its surroundings, the jungle here, is full of foxes, I believe. So maybe I'm entitled to a free membership on the strength of my relatives. I know you have a very long waiting list here. Perhaps I can jump it.
You were saying that, but it is so difficult to get you down from the hills. Every time, like all through your writings, the theme that runs through is you just want to run back to the hills. You want to be by yourself amidst nature. You meet you meet so many people, and yet you seem to be like on a mountain by yourself.
Well, I did as true. I was living in Delhi back in the 1960s, and I wanted to escape from city life. So I went up to the hills, the mountains, and well, I just forgot to go away, and I've been there ever since. And it helps, you know, because it was only when I went to live in the hills that I became, in a sense, a nature writer. I became, because I was close to the forests, the mountain streams, the birds and animals that you get there, that I took a greater interest in the natural world around me, which was something I'd taken for granted before that. So I think, in a way, it helped me as a writer, although I have to say a writer should be able to write anywhere, you know, whether it's in a train or a plane or in a, you know, just anywhere, if you're really fond of writing. But it helps to live in the hills.
You dip into your life for all your writings. There's a very personal element in your writings, and you take inspiration from real life, and yet you live in solitude. Where do you get all this inspiration from? Would you say that you've lived a rich life from where you dig into and get your experiences for writing?
Well, I guess over the years, my themes or inspiration, as you call it, would have changed slightly. In my 20s, I wrote very romantic stories. Some of them are still around. They were usually sad stories in which I always lost the girl. And then when I went up to the hills, I started writing for children. Actually, till the age of 40, I was really writing for adults or for the general reader. It was only in my 40s that I started writing stories specifically for children, and I enjoyed doing that. So children became an inspiration. Sometimes I wrote out of my own childhood, sometimes I wrote about other children and their lives and experiences, village children, small town children. And then as you get older, life seems to get funnier. So in recent years, I think there's been more stories about funny relatives. When I run out of characters, I think of aunts and uncles and eccentric relatives, provided they're far away and I'm out of range, and they can't get at me. And when I run out of relatives, I write about animals and birds. And when I run out of animals and birds, I write ghost stories. You can always cook up a ghost or two, you know, especially up in hill stations, you know, old houses have a reputation for ghosts. But as a little girl asked me not recently, "Sir, do you believe in ghosts?" And I had to say, "No, I don't believe in them, but I keep seeing them, oddly enough." And a little girl also came up and said, "Sir, I like your ghost stories, but they're not scary enough. Can't you make them more frightening?" So I realized that really you can't scare children nowadays. and I get scared at watching some of the things that you see on television. And kids are pretty tough.
After you've been writing for so many decades, does the writing get easier for you as you go along, or is it more difficult? Why do you write?
It's a certain kind of writing gets easier, and because in the last year or two I've been sort of writing memoirs, and because as you get older you've got more to write about. There's the whole past behind you, not only yours but the country's, other people's. So you don't run out of material in a way. And I'm not an experimental writer, but I like to sometimes do things a little differently. And I'm very interested in words, and I keep a big fat Oxford English dictionary on my desk. And it's great fun looking at, discovering new words, discovering the meanings behind words, the history and origin of words. That in itself is a pleasure. So putting words together, making good sentences, writing in a way is a sensual act. For me it is. I get a pleasure of just putting pen to paper. Because I'm still an old-fashioned writer, I use pen and paper. I know perhaps most young writers today would be using the latest technology, and good luck to them. You should, whatever you're easy with, that's the best way to write.
To you, writing came very easy, as you once said that you had ink running in your veins. But a lot of people find it very difficult to start writing. Would you say that the talent of writing is inborn, or can it be acquired as well?
Yeah, that's difficult to say. Well, I think there are two kinds of writing. There's these, you get a subjective writer who writes a lot out of his or her own life, and that's the kind of writer I am. Then you would get a more objective kind of writer who has an imagination and can write fantasy or science fiction, or who can write a story that's in a way not related to himself. But as far as it getting easier, it's perhaps I find it easier now actually to because I never edit. I'm lazy. I just write. So what I put down goes straight to the publishers, and they'll send me a printout that'll be full of mistakes, and that'll have to be corrected. But because I enjoy writing, I just write as though I'm writing a journal or a diary. I won't bother to edit. So I do really, I think if you're enjoying your writing, you won't find it difficult.
In your younger years, you've also had your fair share of rejection slips. It must be a wonderful feeling today that every word you write or speak is worth its weight in gold, literally.
Yes, I certainly had my fair share of rejections, and back in the 50s and 60s when I wrote, I would assault practically every magazine editor or newspaper editor in the land to get published. And in those days you could get paid anything from 5 rupees to at the most 50 rupees for a story. Now I'm going back to the 1950s and early 60s. And the Times of India was then one of my sources of income, specifically the Illustrated Weekly of India, which was a Times of India publication. And the weekly was paid the highest in India. There was 50 rupees. And occasionally I would sell a story to the BBC Home Service, and they would pay then 12 guineas, which was okay, not bad in the late 50s. So you had to write a lot of stories in order to make enough to live on. And things have certainly got easier in the last 10 or 15 years because we have more publishers here. We have so many writers who are writing bestsellers overnight almost. And I could rattle off half a dozen names. I think one or two are going to be here with you. So, but it took me about 20 to 30 years to, in a way, establish myself. It wasn't easy in those days.
Yeah, now that you mentioned them, Ruskin, what do you think about these overnight successes? What do you think about the books that make it to the bestseller charts nowadays? All that mythology rewritten, fictionalized, and history fictionalized and rewritten, and so many other books.
Well, it's not easy, whatever you write, and I'm pretty sure that and I know that the very successful young writers today who are making money, they're working hard, and they know their audience, they know their, as you say, their market. So I think writing has become very specialized in a way. And I'm just an old-fashioned essay writer, going back to my school days when I would read writers like Charles Lamb and J.B. Priestley and others, and try to write a good essay. So basically at heart, I'm just trying to, put good sentences together and write. Even my longer works or non-fiction autobiographies are extended essays in a way. It's the short stories where I've perhaps got even shorter and shorter.
You said recently that wherever you go in the world, you find your freedom curtailed, and we are the real robots. Would you like to speak about that?
Well, I don't go out much into the world, and I've never had my freedom curtailed because I've never wanted, in a way, more than I've received. And perhaps my needs are very few, in that all I'd like to have books around me, lots of books, and my own favorites. I won't read just anything and everything. Then I like to sleep now. I like to go out into the woods. I like to sort of list the butterflies or birds I've seen. So that sort of freedom you can have anywhere, I think. I'm not really looking for for anything more than that.
I want you to tell the people here who want to be writers, and quite a few of them came up to you and said they want to be writers, young kids here. But when they say they want to be writers, they don't just think about being a writer for the sake of writing. They think about being a celebrity writer. They think about their book being on the bestseller list. So please, a few words from you for aspiring writers on if they want to get into the field of writing, how is it, what is it that they should be looking for, and what should they do to be successful?
Yes, well, I've always said don't rush into writing, don't rush into getting published. And I've always advised young writers or any writer, don't pay in order to get published. You should get paid. The writer should be receiving royalties. The writer should be receiving payment for his work. And but I keep meeting people who want their books published, who will, if they're very young, they will ask mommy or daddy to pay 2 or 3 lakh rupees to get the book published, and it will be printed, and 500 copies will be delivered to your doorstep. And then what do you do with it? You give them away to your friends. So you're not really getting anywhere that way. I think if you believe in yourself and you think you can write, and your friends and others say you can write, then persist and get a good publisher, somebody who will bring out your book in a handsome edition, will distribute it, will sell it, and you must make something out of it. Just the idea of having your byline on a book isn't enough, because later on you'll be disappointed, and you'll feel maybe that you made a mistake. So don't rush into publishing, and also take take care with your language. You must respect the language you write in, whether it's English, Bengali, Hindi. Um, make make your sentences come alive. Make your writing come alive. Don't just dash things off.
So, Ruskin, the last question before we get on to the prize distribution for Right India Junior. What next for you? What are you working on now? And what is the, is there any genre, is there anything that you have not touched but want to and plan to?
Oh, I keep getting ideas for stories, or sometimes very bizarre ones. Just before coming down, I wrote a little short story in which I described how many years back I saw the Indian rope trick. It actually happened, you know. Somebody, I went to a village fair, and there was an old man with a boy, and they threw the rope up into the air, and his boy went up the rope. Coconuts came showering down. Then the boy's head came down. Then his arms and legs and limbs came down, tumbling down. And everyone was aghast. And the old man went around collecting money on his behalf because he'd lost his son, his little boy. And then from out of the bushes, a little boy appeared and bowed to everybody. He was perfectly all right. Nothing had happened to him. And I still don't know how he did it. Was it suggestion, or was it mesmerism or hypnotism? But it actually happened. And before he left, he gave me a coconut. And I looked, as the coconut started quivering in my hands, and when I looked down at it, it had eyes, it had a nose, it had a grinning mouth, and I dropped it and took off in a hurry. Did you believe that story? No, I'm sorry, I just made it up.
Wow, so that's how you write your stories. That's amazing.
Well, that was one of them.
One of them. So, thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you. I wish we had more time. But we should get on with the Right India prize distribution. Right India is now the world's largest crowdsourced short story writing contest, started by the Times of India in 2015. We linked up with successful authors who give us passages. Based on those passages, we invite short stories, and we get in short stories in the thousands. Like in the first year, we got 25,000 short stories, and the second season got even better. So Ruskin Bond was a part of season 2 of Right India, and we got a huge response. Lots of youngsters and adults and old people, everybody wrote short stories sent for him. And for the Times Literature Festival Kolkata, we specially started a contest just for Kolkata, the Right India Junior. And quite a few of the participants are sitting in the audience, and the winners as well. We will now announce the winners of the contest, and they get their prizes from Ruskin. Shantini, please take over.
Of the hundreds of stories we received, we now announce the top 5 favorites of Ruskin Bond. The 5th prize winner of Right India Junior Contest is Oishiki Basu. We request Oishiki to come on stage, please. Congratulations, Oishiki. Oishiki, can you please turn around? Stand with Ruskin. Get your picture taken. The 4th prize winner. Thank you, Oishiki. The 4th prize winner of Right India Junior is Obhijato Shen Sharma. Obhijato, come on stage, please. Congratulations. Stand with Mr. Bond. Thank you, Abhijata. And the third prize winner of Right India Junior is Alina Datta. Congratulations, Alina. Thank you, Alina. The third prize winner of Right India Junior is, the second prize winner of Right India Junior is Ashwin Arun. Congratulations, Ashwin. Thank you, Ashwin. And now, the first prize winner of Right India Junior for Ruskin Bond is Ashirvani Mojumdar. Congratulations, Ashirvani. Thank you, Ashirvani. Thank you, Mr. Ruskin. Over to Vinita Dawra Nangia.